Welcome back to Lit Snippets, your shortcut to literary adventures.
Mm.
We're tackling a really unique one today. Um, The Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah, unique is a good word for it. It's not even just a story. It's like a story within a story.
Oh,
William Goldman, the author, he claims he's only giving us like the best parts of this much older Florinese epic.
so it's like skip the boring history lectures and let's get to the sword fights and the true love already.
Exactly. And he even like gives examples of what he supposedly cut out, like these ridiculously detailed packing lists for, princesses and pages of medical treatments.
Oh, wow.
It's hilarious, but it also, makes you wonder about the original author's priorities.
Right. So, okay, but here's where it gets even weirder. Goldman, he actually claims he's never even read this full original version
Yeah.
by S. Morgenstern.
Really?
Yeah, his dad read it aloud to him as a kid,
Yeah.
skipping all the boring bits, of course.
So there's this whole other layer of like father-son connection in this. Imagine that, a story just passed down orally, kind of shaping his whole idea of what makes good storytelling.
It really makes you think about how, like, our earliest experiences with books affect us, you know?
Yeah.
Especially if you had someone read aloud to you.
Oh, for sure. And it kind of adds this like poignant layer to the whole abridgment idea too. Like he's basically retelling the story the way his dad might have, cutting to the chase and focusing on what really matters.
Emotionally, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this kind of unusual framing device, but what about the story itself?
Yeah.
The Princess Bride is uh, beloved for a reason. I mean, it's got everything. True love, pirates, giants, sword fights, you name it.
It's like it's a masterclass in blending classic fairy tale elements with wit and a self-aware humor that's constantly winking at the reader.
Yeah, it's like it knows it's tropey, but it just fully embraces it,
Exactly.
which makes it even more enjoyable.
And the characters, oh my goodness. Buttercup, the stunning heroine, Wesley, the farmhand turned pirate, and of course, Inigo Montoya.
Oh, the swordsman with the most quoted line in cinematic
I
history.
was gonna say.
You kill my father, prepare to die. I get chills every time.
Oh, me too. Each character is like larger than life, but they have these little touches that make them feel real and relatable.
Yeah,
Even the villains have this certain charm, even if they're, trying to murder our heroes.
right, of course. But beneath all this swashbuckling adventure, there's a deeper emotional core to it too, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Goldman's own life struggles, his complicated family, frustrations with Hollywood, they kind of they almost mirror the themes of perseverance, loyalty, and fighting for what you believe in.
It's almost like he's drawing parallels between Wesley's unwavering love for Buttercup and his own desire for something pure and steadfast in his life.
Yeah, which kind of makes you wonder, like, how much of Goldman is actually in this story? Is it pure escapism or a way of processing his own life through this, like, fantastical lens?
Right. So we have this multi-layered book, abridged, but
Mm.
somehow more complex because of it. What um what stands out to you the most about The Princess Bride, thinking about this unusual way it came to be?
I think what really fascinates me is this whole idea of retelling. We often think of the author as having like ultimate authority, but here Goldman's pretty boldly reshaping this pre-existing work, making us question like what makes a story good.
Yeah. And, is he doing it justice
Yeah.
or are we missing out on some hidden brilliance in the original text?
Ah, well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it actually leads us right into one of the book's most controversial aspects,
He did
the
it.
ending.
Okay, so the ending, hmm, I don't want to, give anything away for our listeners, but Morgenstern, the original author, he leaves things on a very different note than Goldman does.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, this is where that whole abridgment idea gets really interesting. Morgenstern's ending, it's ambiguous, almost like cynical even. But Goldman, he insists on that classic happy ending, even
Yeah.
arguing with the fictional Morgenstern right there in the text.
It's like he's saying, "Nope, that's not how it goes. This is the real ending." Pretty bold, to say the least.
Oh, yeah. And it really brings up this fascinating question, like, does an abridger, even one, as good as Goldman, have the right to just change the author's intent like that?
Especially when the original author is, well, potentially fictional. We're already in this story within a story, and then like this extra layer of authorial debate just it throws everything into question.
It's like metafiction at its finest.
Oh.
Goldman's playing with the very nature of storytelling itself. It makes you wonder, who gets to control the narrative and how much truth is there in any version of a story, really?
Which makes you think, like, what would The Princess Bride be like without Goldman's filter? Would we even love it as much if it was, just Morgenstern's original, maybe darker tale?
Oh, that's a good question. It speaks to the power of framing, like how a good storyteller can really shape the way we see and feel about a story.
And Goldman, with his little witty asides and, directly talking to the reader, he becomes almost like a character himself, guiding us through the story.
Exactly. He's not just an abridger. He's a co-creator,
Yeah.
adding his own, humor, his commentary, his take on the story.
It's like having a friend just whisper in your ear, like, okay, skip this part. It's boring. Let's get to the good stuff.
Right.
You trust their judgment, but you still can't help but wonder what you're missing.
Yeah. And that's part of the magic of The Princess Bride. It's a fun escapist adventure, but it's also like this clever commentary on storytelling.
So for our listeners who are like rushing to add this to their TBR pile, what's the one thing they should really keep in mind going into The Princess Bride?
I'd say approach The Princess Bride with like a sense of playfulness and curiosity. Embrace the absurdity of it, enjoy the humor, and don't be afraid to question the narrator. After all, like Goldman himself says, this is my favorite book in all the world, though I've never read it.
Wow, so much to think about with The Princess Bride, this book that might not even be a book, really. For our listeners who are, busy and just want the gist, what's the one thing they should really know about this story?
Well, I think that the key takeaway is that The Princess Bride is really a celebration of storytelling. It reminds us that stories can be passed down and reshaped and reinterpreted. They can take on new meanings with every telling.
And that even an abridged version can be like its own masterpiece. I mean, Goldman, with his unique perspective, gives us adventure and romance and humor. And he also makes us think about these, bigger questions about like authorship and how we connect with stories.
Exactly. It's a book for everyone, really. You can enjoy it just for fun or dive into those deeper levels of, metafiction and literary commentary.
Which is what makes it such a perfect fit for lit snippets. It's a quick read, but it really gets the conversation going.
So, to all our listeners out there, I highly recommend checking out The Princess Bride. Whether it's an old favorite or you're reading it for the first time, it's a book that's sure to delight and surprise you. And, it'll stick with you long after you finish it.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe it'll even inspire you to create your own good parts version of your favorite story.
That's a great idea.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into The Princess Bride.
It's been a pleasure.
And be sure to subscribe to Lit Snippets for more bite-sized book breakdowns. Until next time, happy reading.